Good morning, everybody. It gives me great pride. I'm Mayor Jim Langfeld, Mayor of this great city of Springfield. And really, today's event really holds a special place in my heart. First off, this was probably the last place my dad worked. You know, actually got the paycheck in his 80 years of age and plus. And he always held IDOT in his heart because they are the true professionals when it comes to state of Illinois, infrastructure improvements, what can be done to rebuild not only the state but all our cities. And then, you know, we've had some tough times as mayor. You know, we went 2 years without a state budget under a previous administration, previous governor, and that was very difficult. But thanks to Governor Pritzker's foresight and vision for the future, it helped put us on a path of success that nobody could have predicted. Nobody could have predicted the pandemic, but thanks to the legislative actions across the board, Democrats and Republicans, under the leadership of Governor Pritzker, the motor fuel tax was passed, and bright new days were ahead, and all of a sudden the pandemic hit. But that did not stop government from working. And that's a crucial part to why Springfield is one of the top post-pandemic places to be, along with Bloomington and Champaign, and that's due to the leadership of Governor Pritzker. I think the Rebuild Illinois plan, because our rail project continued to happen with regards to the $125 million invested by the state of Illinois. And what also Rebuild has done is build our streets throughout our community. It's 5th and 6th Street will be redone. Most importantly for us, as well as back then it was Alderman Doris Turner, and we're proud to say Senator Doris Turner. We really appreciate her leadership at the State House, because now we have the Walnut Street road diet for safer roads, and then we're looking at Lawrence Avenue, that intersection that was a dangerous intersection back when my father served this great city. So a lot of great things that were on the board for a long period of time are coming to fruition, and that's due to the leadership of Governor Pritzker and the foresight he had to really take that tough decision to move forward with the rebuild plan and continue it, because that's what we need to do to make a stronger future for all of us. So we appreciate everybody being here, especially my father's probably former workers, some of you at IDOT, but it gives me great pleasure to welcome you today to tout the accomplishments that have been happening, but most importantly the multi-year plan moving forward to our future together. So thank you very much, and thank you to Secretary Osmond. We appreciate your leadership through IDOT in these very opportunistic times.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to welcome all of you to the Illinois Department of Transportation. I am extremely proud that Governor Pritzker and our honored guests, including the mayor who just spoke to us, Senator Turner, our labor and industry partners, have come to IDOT today at our headquarters here in Springfield. This agency has been home for me for more than 30 years. So, Mr. Mayor, I probably did work with your dad. And the people who work here are very, very special to me. I wanted to acknowledge quickly a few of them who had taken a part in the development of the multi-year program. We have our Director of Highways Project Implementation, our Chief Engineer, Steve Travia. We have Region 1 Engineer Jose Rios, Region 3 Engineer Kensel Garnett, Region 4 Engineer Jeff Myers, and Jeff Myers' team have actually helped put this event together for us. Our Region 5 Engineer Kirk Brown, and critical to making this day happen is our Office of Planning and Programming staff, who put many hours, many long hours I should say, compiling our multi-year program, including its director Holly Bieneman and many others. I am extremely grateful for their work. So this multi-year program we are releasing today is perhaps the most consequential in the history of the department. We are putting into action year 4 of Rebuild Illinois, the largest capital program in state history, and the first one that touches all modes of transportation. For the first time since Rebuild Illinois passed in 2019, this multi-year program does not just focus on roads and bridges, but shows how we plan to invest in transit, rail, airport, and waterways over the next 6 years, capturing the true multimodal mission of the Illinois Department of Transportation. It also does reflect the increased funding made possible by the last year's passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, the biggest federal commitment to the nation's system of transportation since the Eisenhower administration. And at the governor's direction, we are bringing greater equity and transparency in transportation planning and programming through new data tools. We are also delivering our projects more innovatively. This summer, the governor signed Senate Bill 2981, authorizing IDOT to adopt the use of design-build delivery method, which will bring greater efficiency and certainty to the highway project. Although they could not be here with us today, I wish to pass along my gratitude and my thanks to Chairman Moylan, Leader Evans, Chairman Velavalum, and Senator DeWitt for their support. These projects outlined in our multi-year program are more than just words on pages. They ensure the people of Illinois have a transportation system that is reliable, safe, and provide economic opportunity across the state. As always, we will be proceeding with a commitment to provide equity and build a workforce that reflects the diversity in our great state of Illinois. It does remain the blueprint for how we rebuild Illinois. And without additional delay, I would like to introduce the person who has made it all possible for us, Governor Pritzker. Governor.
Well, thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I want to express my gratitude not only to Secretary Osman, but also to the terrific men and women who work here at the Department of Transportation, making it all happen for all of us. And I also want to recognize, of course, the men and women of organized labor who are out there every day making sure that we're truly rebuilding our state, modernizing and updating all of our transportation assets. They really are on the front lines making things happen, and I'm grateful. A little over 3 years ago, I signed our historic bipartisan infrastructure program into law. And since then, Rebuild Illinois has undertaken a massive transformation of our state's transportation systems. The renovation of nearly 4,500 miles of highway and over 400 bridges has already been completed. And virtually every Illinois resident can see and feel the results in real time. And it's not just surface transportation that's being rebuilt. Rebuild Illinois is also expanding and upgrading and modernizing broadband, universities and community colleges, airports, riverports, state parks, healthcare institutions, state residential facilities, and small business innovation hubs. Every region of our state is seeing the positive impacts of Rebuild Illinois. As governor, the well-being of our residents is always at front of mind, and it always will be my top priority. That's why at every turn we prioritize the safety and accessibility of our infrastructure with 621 additional improvements at railroad junctions, pedestrian crossings, sidewalks, and high-frequency crash sites. And of course, Rebuild Illinois is also a vehicle for prosperity for our workers and our families. We've created and supported hundreds of thousands of jobs in every part of our state because this isn't just an infrastructure plan, it's also an economic plan. Today, I am very proud to announce IDOT's new multi-year program for the next 6 years. And thanks to last year's passage of the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the investment that we're making in our roads and bridges is our highest yet. This MYP covers over $20 billion of transportation investments, including 2,500 miles of roads and nearly 10 million square feet of bridge deck. And remember that all of our road and bridge projects are subject to the new Transportation Asset Management Plan, a more technologically advanced process to maintain our infrastructure in a timely fashion to save taxpayers money and keep our surface transportation in better shape for longer than ever before. But roads and bridges aren't all that we're focused on in the MYP. It covers every mode of transportation, with $10 billion going toward our state's rail and transit systems, our airports, and our river ports. And our new data-driven decisions tool will transform the way we select our projects, ensuring greater equity and transparency in our planning process. As we move into the next years of Rebuild Illinois, every area of our state will see upgrades and modernization. I-55 will see additional lanes and reconstruction right here in Springfield, all the way down to south of Illinois 123. On I-57, more than 20 miles will be repaved from Coles County line to Sedoris Road. Effingham residents will finally see long-awaited ADA improvements, as well as storm sewer, curbs, and gutters reconstruction all the way to Fayette Avenue. In Granite City, from Chain of Rocks Canal to St. Thomas Road, we're doing bridge replacement work, interchange reconstruction, and other improvements on I-270. And the Illinois 15 exchange in Mount Vernon will undergo complete reconstruction. In Chicago, we're reconstructing Bessie Coleman Drive to I-90, which will improve safety and access to O'Hare International Airport. In Joliet, New Lenox, Minooka, and over the Des Plaines River, we are rebuilding a critical freight corridor and improving safety measures on I-80 from Ridge Road to US 30, and we're entirely replacing the I-80 bridge over the Mississippi River. From Clifton to Kankakee County, we're repairing I-57 with road resurfacing and bridge replacement. And in western Illinois, US 34 near Monmouth is getting brand new construction. Look, for many, many years before I took office, the state underinvested in our infrastructure, and it was left crumbling. It was costing drivers an average of over $500 a year in flat tires and wear and tear from potholes and misaligned pavement. And it was costing us jobs because businesses that want to manufacture or distribute their goods decide that they can't do it in Illinois if it isn't maintaining its roads and bridges. That's why we need Rebuild Illinois now. And with the innovative new law that I signed in June, we're authorizing design-build project implementation, as the Secretary mentioned. We're saving taxpayers money and streamlining our construction process and timeline. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the General Assembly for authorizing this critical assessment tool, and I especially want to recognize Representative Cam Buckner and Senator Ram Vilivalam for their leadership in getting it done. I want to thank Mayor James Langfelder for his leadership here in Springfield, and more broadly for standing up and making sure that we're investing in infrastructure right here for the residents of Springfield. And I want to express my gratitude also to Senator Doris Turner, who, yes, was part of city government for a long time, but that means she brought to state government the experience of somebody who really knows what needs to get done for her constituents. I want to thank them both for joining us today. Together, we are literally paving the way for generations to come. At its very core, Rebuild Illinois and this MYP are an investment in our future, one that leads to economic prosperity and environmental sustainability. So thank you, and with that, I'd like to introduce the great senator from this district, Senator Doris Turner.
Good morning. Oh, y'all are so weak. It's a beautiful day. The state fair is here. Um, I'm very excited to be here today. The multi-year plan being unveiled today is a monumental step forward in building a more transparent and equitable transportation system. Dedicating billions of state and federal funds, we are using new equity-based metrics to guide essential infrastructure improvements. This will help create new jobs, promote safe roads, bridges, and highways, and connect communities across Illinois. Over the next 6 years, these projects will focus on more than just completion, but also on revitalizing the communities they take place in. Metrics like environmental impact, accessibility, safety, and increased benefits to underserved communities will be at the forefront of these projects. So let me repeat that if you didn't hear it. Metrics like environmental impact, accessibility, safety, and increased benefits to underserved communities will be at the forefront of these projects. And I repeated that because it's very important. As we work in partnership with local governments to revitalize and address blight in our underserved communities, infrastructure needs and how we address them will dictate our success and dictate the success of those communities. And that cannot be understated. I was proud to support the bipartisan legislation that established these metrics, and am eager to see their results in communities across Illinois. A little over 3 years ago, as the alderman that represented Ward 3 in the city of Springfield, I had the great honor to stand with Governor Pritzker as he signed the legislation that brought all of this into fruition. There was a vision that, with the stroke of that pen, went in, changed from vision to putting feet behind that vision and putting it in process. And so today we see the steady movement of that vision, and I cannot be more prouder of what that is going to mean, not only for the 48th District and the city of Springfield, but for the entire state of Illinois. And with that, I would invite Governor Pritzker back for questions.
Happy to take any questions from members of the media. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let the expert, the secretary, answer the question directly, although I have my own version of the answer.
Most likely it's not different from mine, Governor. But design build, it does eliminate at least one step. The traditional version is you design, you bid, and you build. All these are separate teams. Design build puts the designer and the contractor, in a sense, together in one room as a team, so they could design it and build it as they go. That brings in a greater sense of, first of all, transparency, because the department is still watching over that process, and expediency. So we won't take, sometimes our larger projects especially, it takes much longer time to put out for letting, so to speak, and for the contractor to start building. Is bringing that entire team up front together, working together, and putting that project out there in a practical term early on. I do believe the legislators does cap it at $400 million over the next 6 years, but no, for the entire program. Yes, that's the cap. Right, that's a great question, and I'm going to give you a range from what I know for us here, and it's very similar to our adjacent state, the Indiana, the Missouri, Iowa. Typically, the inflation has caused at least 10% increase in the price. Sometimes it depends on the project itself, because some of the commodities and some of the materials is pretty hard to get, especially on the steel and the bituminous material side. Sometimes when the market dries up, the price goes up. But we're seeing a little bit of stability right now, at least, but we have seen an increase of at least 10%. Those are the main components: steel and the asphalt material. Yes, sir. Absolutely. You did mention the I-290. I-290 is slated to be done later this year, or perhaps earlier next year, because there are some components of it, like siding and whatnot, that could be done without closing a lane. So we anticipate I-290 to be done sometimes early spring next year. Having said that, I-290 funding has been made available through Rebuild Illinois. Yes, it's not necessarily contingent on our plan today. The multi-year program we unveiling today is meant for other projects to come down the road. Newer project, yes. Indeed, it did. And I think there's one pager that we're going to distribute. It's going to show at least $1.4 billion coming in strictly for bridges. That is a main focus of our federal FHWA partners. Bridges across the nation, as we know, are getting pretty old, and most of them are in need of replacement. So they allocated $1.4 billion over the next 5 years for IDOT to use strictly on bridges. Having said that, the federal package itself, as an overall, has increased by at least 20% for us. So if we're getting, say, if we're getting about 10 billion, now we're getting at least 12 billion for as an example. So. Of the 20, it's actually 24.6 is the highway program. The governor did say over 20 billion. A little over half of it is the federal side. I think we have around 11 billion or so, if I remember correctly, Howard, 11 billion or so for the state.
I'm sorry, can we just hold 1 second? I just want to complete an answer, which is one of the best things about the federal program is that the match that the state has is 20% and 80% from the federal government. And because we passed Rebuild Illinois 2 years before, 2.5 years before the IIJA was passed, we actually are shovel ready. We have the resources available. There are a lot of other states that have to come up with those dollars, don't know where they're going to come from. And so we're really in a position to do much more quickly. That's a terrific thing for Illinois. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm shocked and dismayed, honestly, that Republicans across Illinois haven't stood up for law enforcement, haven't stood up for law and order, and instead are standing with somebody that clearly there is something afoot here that may lead to a prosecution. It seems like, Republicans say that they're anti-crime, and yet here they are standing up for somebody who seems to have committed one. We're going to be adopting the CDC's guidance. We're going through it today. There are obviously a lot of components of it. It wasn't just about schools. And so we'll be making an announcement about that as soon as we can. But we want to align with the CDC. I think they're doing good work on this. And we want to make sure our schools, of course, are open, as they have been, by the way, for the last 2 years. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I think you keep focusing on the wrong thing. The fact is that those disaster declarations have among them a number of provisions that are executive orders that have been ratcheted down. In fact, we're all the way down to the very bare minimum, and we are concurrent with the federal disaster proclamation, which is still in place. And so we'll be leaving that in place to make sure that we're getting the maximum amount of federal funding for the state of Illinois. I want to remind you that Illinois historically has been a donor state to the rest of the country. We don't get back in Illinois the tax dollars that we send to Washington, D.C. We ought to get those dollars back, and this is one of the ways that we can do that. But very importantly, this is about making sure that we're dealing with COVID-19, ratcheting all the way down, keeping people safe, because COVID-19 has not gone away. And those dollars that come from the federal government are very helpful for us in order to combat that.
Is there any update on a special session, and is there any need for some sort of trailer bill to clarify some things in the Pre-Trial Fairness Act before January 1st?
Let's talk about special session just for a moment. As you know, the working groups are hard at work in the House of Representatives, working on various aspects of legislation, working with advocates, listening to them, and so we're cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to come up with ideas for us to be able to bring forward in a special session or in veto session, or some of it may even be in the new year. So that's essentially what we're looking at right now. We want to make sure that everybody's brought together so we have the best legislation put forward possible. Thank you.